1 year ago, this weekend, amazingly, Malaysia airline flight 370 vanished without a trace, no trace at all. To date, authorities have searched nearly 2 million square miles of the Indian Ocean. They found no physical evidence of any kind. There are a number of theories about what happened to the plane. Some believe it simply ran out of gas and crashed. Others think something far more sinister happened. Here with his theory is Fox News military analyst Lieutenant General Tom McInerney. General, thanks for coming on this morning.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So you are in the latter category. You don't believe that this was an accident. You think that it was an act of human will that did this. I hope I'm being accurate to your views. What do you think happened?
Well, until we find some debris or some evidence, then we have to treat it as a threat to our national security. Now, if you take that course of action, which I'm discussing now, and you see the brilliant way that airplane was maneuvered to make it stealthy, and I won't go through the procedures again, but it was done brilliantly, and if the pilot's watching, I commend him, then you have to say it's gone into a covert operation. I hope they find it in the South Indian Ocean, Tucker, but we've been doing it for a year, and again, I don't think that. The course of action I think we have to look is up in the stands and where that airplane could have gone. It was a course of action that was never investigated. One of the networks went to extensive expense to talk about it and never talked about radical Islam being involved with it.
So, I mean, you piqued my interest, and I don't think you would bore our audience at all by telling us about the stealthy direction in which this pilot flew this plane. Please enlighten me.
Well, number one, when they turned the ACARS system off, which was emitting engine information. Number two, when they turned the IFF off. Number three, when they made the turn, when they went from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysian air traffic control, to Ho Chi Minh City. This was all done brilliantly by a pilot who knew exactly what he was doing. He then makes his turn at the checkpoint when he's supposed to be going to Ho Chi Minh City, and all of a sudden he is blacked out from electronic means. He climbs to 45,000 feet, which means he's depressurizing the airplane. He comes down to 23 and then back up to 35 again. All these things eliminated the people in the back to be a threat, and now all of a sudden the airplane disappears. If you're so brilliant in doing that, why would you drive another 7.5 hours just to kill yourself? It doesn't make sense. Plus, hours before he took the airplane, he attended the trial of the opposition leader, Ibrahim, who was convicted and given 5 years in prison. He was a very upset pilot.
Wow.
We had a gentleman on the program earlier this morning, a scientific journalist and a pilot himself. His name is Jeff Wise. Here's what he believes is behind the disappearance of MH370.
The question I wanted to answer was, is there any way that these pings could have been falsified or altered, tampered with? If you assume that part of the data was spoofed, part of it can't be spoofed. It's just too difficult. And with that remaining data, you can still derive a flight path. And that flight path indicates that it went north across India, along the border between China and Pakistan, and you wind up in Kazakhstan. And that's a client state of Russia.
So part of his theory is that Russian special ops could have hacked into the plane somehow, and it was all under the direction of Vladimir Putin. Do you see any merit to this?
Well, I think that Inmarsat, which was the instrumentation they were using, Anna, could have been, first of all, it is questionable for geographical location, and they had to do some new technology to come up with the answers they did. That could have been either at Inmarsat or someone else. But the fact is there were two arcs, a northern arc and a southern arc. They locked onto the southern arc. The southern arc, of course, for the Malaysian government was a much better arc. If that airplane had been hijacked, the lawsuits would have been very high, particularly by the pilot. So from their point of view, the southern arc was the least onerous. I don't know the specifics on it, but I do know that it is a course of action that was never looked at, and nobody has investigated it from that point of view.
And you think that's because the liability in discovering that it was hijacked was just too high, and the airline didn't want to deal with that?
That was one of the reasons. And then, of course, the Malaysian government doesn't want to talk about their radical Islam networks down there. And of course, then whoever was involved with it clearly do not want anybody to know where it is, because that airplane can fly nonstop from the stands to the United States, New York, or Washington, D.C. It could be a future trigger for events against our country, and that's what concerns me the most.
Lieutenant General Tom McInerney, it's always great to have you here on the show. Thanks so much for your
That was
thoughts.
interesting. Thanks.
Fascinating. Thanks, General.
Thank you.